Some connections strike us with a strange familiarity, as if they were written long before we met. There is an energy, a pull, a sense of ancient recognition that stirs something sacred within. But what do we do when this very bond begins to unravel us? When the universe, so silent before, now speaks in the language of discomfort, delays, and quiet ache. Carl Jung reminded us that every encounter between souls is also a meeting of shadows, not just romance, but revelation. If love begins to weigh on the soul, it may not be a failure. It may be an invitation to return home to oneself. Comment below, I choose the love that sets me free. This is your first sacred vow to your own becoming. In Jungian terms, every relationship is a psychic collision, a merging of inner worlds filled with unspoken desires, forgotten memories, and unmet needs. When we speak of signs that two people are not meant to stay, we are not referring to superficial incompatibilities. We are speaking of the soul's subtle resistance, expressed through misalignments, symbols and synchronicities, nudging us towards something deeper than our longing for companionship. The universe does not shout, it whispers through repetition, delays and moments that don't quite sit right. In the beginning, love often feels like a remedy. The other person seems to fit perfectly into our cracks, completing the story we've been telling ourselves in silence. But that harmony is often built upon projection, a psychological phenomenon Jung identified as the moment we see our own unlived parts in someone else. We don't fall in love with who they are, we fall in love with who we are allowed to be in their presence. But projections are fragile, and when they break we must decide, cling to illusion or walk toward individuation, the sacred path of self-actualization. The soul grows restless when trapped inside relationships that reflect not who we are, but who we fear being alone without. The signs intensify, conversations become cycles, joy turns heavy. Even in laughter there's an undercurrent of silence that feels like mourning. This is not punishment, it is spiritual awakening. A call to witness, where we have abandoned ourselves, to feel chosen. And the longer we resist, the louder the universe becomes, until we can no longer unsee what the heart has known all along. Jung taught that we are drawn to partners who mirror our unconscious, not just our dreams but our wounds. When love becomes a mirror of unhealed places, the universe begins to unravel the story. You may start seeing repeating numbers, having strange dreams or encountering delays that seem oddly purposeful. These are not coincidences, they are the collective unconscious rising up, placing signs in your path to awaken you, not to shame you, but to guide you, not to end love, but to evolve it. And so, if the person you're with begins to feel more like a lesson than a home, listen. If the joy you once felt now arrives with sorrow as its shadow, listen. The soul never speaks in judgment, it only seeks truth. And if this love is not aligned with your healing, your purpose, your deeper unfolding, the universe and your own unconscious will not let you remain asleep. This is the sacred discomfort that precedes liberation. You are not being abandoned. You are being called back to yourself. There's a moment in many relationships where you look into the other's eyes and feel as though you've found the missing piece, the lost half of your soul. But Jung warned us to be wary of this illusion. What we often mistake for destiny is the projection of our unloved parts onto another. The person in front of us becomes the carrier of our hopes, our pain, our unspoken longing to be seen and saved. And while this can feel like magic in the beginning, the spell always wears thin. What remains is the truth, not of who they are, but of who we are becoming through them. The universe begins to intervene when we confuse healing with attachment. It does so gently at first, a missed call, a cancelled plan, a subtle discomfort in their presence. Then it escalates: confusion, arguments, emotional distance, or an eerie sense that something is no longer flowing. This is not cruelty, this is soul work, because true love does not survive on projections. It thrives in clarity, and clarity often arrives wrapped in disappointment. To see the other not as our savior, but as their own flawed sovereign being, that is the moment the real work begins. When the mind tries to hold on, the soul begins to let go. Not out of bitterness, but out of deep wisdom. The signs that a relationship is no longer aligned often feel like inner earthquakes, subtle shifts that disturb our peace, dreams that haunt instead of heal, or repeated moments that echo something ancient and unresolved. These are symbols. In Jungian thought, every outer event carries inner meaning. When your relationship starts mirroring emotional wounds you thought were buried, the universe is not trying to punish you, it is inviting you to heal. Many remain in misaligned relationships, not because of love, but because of fear. Fear of starting over, fear of being alone, fear of losing a dream. But fear is not a sacred guide. The soul speaks in courage. It whispers truths we try to silence. It shows us where we've substituted emotional dependency for genuine connection. It reveals how we've asked another to carry the weight of our inner emptiness. And when the soul is ready to grow, it will unravel any bond that hinders its blooming, even if that bond once felt like salvation. There is heartbreak in realizing that someone you once adored may not be meant to stay, but there is also freedom. Because what dissolves under the light of awareness was never truly yours. It was a mirror, a message, a movement toward wholeness. To withdraw a projection is painful, it requires spiritual maturity. But this withdrawal is not abandonment. It is a return to the self, the only place where real love can ever begin. Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." So if the signs are speaking, listen. If the relationship once felt fated and now feels forced, surrender. Not all unions are meant to last. Some arrive only to break us open, to awaken what lies dormant, to prepare us for the deeper love that can only be born through integration. Letting go does not mean erasing the beauty of what was. It means honoring the role it played in your becoming, and it means trusting that what ends now is clearing space for something far more real to come. There is an invisible theater within every relationship, a stage where our shadows perform their ancient dramas. Carl Jung described the shadow as the hidden part of the psyche, the neglected twin of our consciousness, our repressed fears, unresolved traumas, unspoken anger, and forgotten longings. And when we fall in love, the shadow does not remain silent. It finds in the other person the perfect mirror. What disturbs us in them is often what we have yet to face in ourselves. This is why love, especially when intense, can also be profoundly uncomfortable. Repeated arguments, emotional triggers, walking on eggshells. These are not just relationship problems, they are psychic echoes. The soul, unable to suppress its deeper wounds any longer, uses the relationship to bring them to light. These patterns will persist, not to torment you, but to be healed. If every conversation circles back to the same wound, if joy is short-lived and tension ever-growing, it may not be about incompatibility, it may be the shadow's desperate cry to be seen and embraced. Jung believed that what we reject in ourselves will always return, often through the people we love. We may unconsciously choose partners who activate our childhood wounds, neglect, invisibility, betrayal, and until those wounds are addressed within, we will find ourselves in emotional loops, chasing closure, demanding validation, yearning for a sense of worth that no one else can bestow. The universe doesn't keep you trapped here to punish you. It is waiting for you to awaken. The pain you feel is not just heartbreak, it is soul work, pushing you toward inner revelation. Dreams become darker. Accidents increase. Silences become heavy. These are not random events. In Jungian psychology, synchronicities, those strange, meaningful coincidences, are the voice of the unconscious made manifest. When a relationship triggers your shadow, the outer world begins to mirror the inner unrest. Sudden illnesses, symbolic losses, even the persistent failure of plans, all may be signs that the soul is calling for realignment. The relationship becomes less about love and more about the alchemical transformation of self. To integrate the shadow is to stop blaming the other. It is to say, this pain lives in me. It did not begin here, but it surfaced here, and now I must face it. This act of inner ownership is sacred. It marks the shift from reaction to reflection, from projection to presence. You begin to ask not why is this happening to me, but what part of me is crying to be held. The very person you thought you needed may simply be the vessel through which your deeper healing begins. The end of such a relationship is not defeat, it is liberation. When you see your shadow clearly, you no longer need someone else to carry it. You become the container. You become the healer, and in that shift, love transforms. It is no longer a search for completion, but a celebration of shared wholeness. If the one beside you cannot meet you at that level, the universe will continue to whisper through discomfort, through misalignment, through distance, until you are ready to walk alone, not in sadness but in sovereign truth. There are moments when life begins to choreograph a pattern so intricate, so repetitive, that it feels like more than coincidence. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, events connected not by causality but by meaning. In the context of love, synchronicities emerge when the soul begins to outgrow the relationship it once clung to. You think about walking away, and a stranger says, "Some doors are meant to close." You feel confused, and a dream arrives that shakes you with clarity. These are not hallucinations. They are signals, subtle spiritual coordinates guiding you home. When we ignore these signals, the universe escalates its message. Misunderstandings that once resolved with ease now spiral into silence. Plans collapse. Emotional weight becomes constant. You begin to feel like a stranger in a familiar room. These aren't signs of failure. They are messages from your deeper self, declaring that this connection no longer serves your expansion. What was once alignment has become resistance, and the soul, infinitely wise, refuses to remain where it cannot breathe. Even love, when misaligned with our growth, becomes a kind of spiritual stagnation. Jung reminds us that the unconscious will do whatever it must to be seen, even if it means collapsing the structures we hold dear. A painful breakup, a sudden betrayal, a forced goodbye. These events may devastate the surface of our life, but they often reveal what we could not admit, that the relationship had become a prison for who we are becoming. What feels like loss is often just a layer of the false self being shed. There is no shame in loving someone who cannot walk beside you forever. Not all soul encounters are meant to last. Some are meant to awaken. We confuse permanence with success, but Jung saw it differently. The psyche evolves through transformation, not possession. When two paths diverge, it may be the most honest act of love to release one another, to insist on staying out of fear. Nostalgia or attachment is to resist the very process that was meant to liberate you. And liberation always begins with letting go, not with bitterness, but with reverence, with the quiet courage to say, "This person helped me remember who I am, and for that I honor them, even as I walk away." That kind of ending is not failure, it is alchemy. When the soul chooses itself, the entire cosmos shifts in its favor. Doors open, light returns, grief softens into gratitude. This is how individuation works, through rupture, reflection, and rebirth. So if everything around you is crumbling, while you try to hold on to love, listen closely. The signs are not cruel. They are sacred. They are pulling you inward, where your wholeness waits. Do not resist what your soul already knows. When love asks you to betray yourself to keep it, it is no longer love. It is longing dressed in illusion. The universe will not sustain what suffocates your becoming. It will whisper, then shake, then sever, not to destroy but to set you free. The hardest endings are the ones that come with no villains, no betrayal, no storm. Just a quiet knowing that the connection, once vibrant, now belongs to another version of you. And yet guilt creeps in like a shadow. You wonder if leaving makes you selfish, if choosing yourself is a form of betrayal. But Carl Jung taught that individuation, the sacred journey of becoming whole, often demands rupture, not as punishment, but as passage. To evolve, we must sometimes disappoint others. The cost of authenticity is often comfort. Guilt arises when we measure ourselves by outdated expectations, the belief that love must endure at any cost, that staying is always noble, that walking away is failure. But this guilt is a remnant of conditioning, not truth. True love honors growth, even when that growth means saying goodbye. The path of individuation asks, are you betraying someone, or finally refusing to betray yourself? There is no shame in honoring the truth of your soul, even if others do not understand it. Especially then, to leave a relationship still full of love is one of the most painful decisions a soul can make. It is not coldness. It is clarity. It is realizing that affection is not the same as alignment, that safety is not the same as freedom, that emotional closeness can coexist with energetic misalignment. When the soul begins to resist a connection, no amount of loyalty can restore what has quietly broken. And in that moment, choosing yourself becomes not just an option, it becomes a spiritual necessity. Letting go is not a rejection of what was beautiful. It is a sacred closing. It says, this story shaped me, but I must now write a new chapter. Jung reminds us that every ending carries within it the seeds of rebirth, that grief, when honored, becomes a bridge to new life. You are not abandoning love. You are evolving it. You are releasing the illusion that another can carry your wholeness. And in that release, you reclaim your inner power, the only place from which real love can be given or received. If you feel torn between your heart and your path, know this: both can be honored. Love what was, mourn what won't be, and still walk forward. That paradox is the essence of spiritual maturity. The ability to say, I loved you, and I must still leave, is not a contradiction. It is a revelation. It means the relationship fulfilled its purpose, not to last forever, but to bring you to yourself. That too is a miracle. The universe will never ask you to remain where your soul is dimming. It will always conspire, even through pain, to guide you home. And if that means ending something sacred, it is only because something more sacred awaits. The guilt will pass. The grief will soften, but the truth of your becoming, that will remain. And one day, you will look back and see it not as an ending, but as the exact moment you chose your own light. There is a sacred moment after the storm, when silence settles not as absence, but as clarity. The ache lingers, yes, but so does a sense of peace that defies logic. You begin to feel the difference between loneliness and solitude. You recognize that the love you thought you needed was never meant to complete you, only to awaken you. This is the soul's quiet resurrection. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You are no longer under the spell, you are finally awake. As the dust clears, you may still reach for them in your thoughts, still wonder what could have been, still feel the phantom of their presence in your everyday moments. This is not weakness. This is mourning, and mourning is holy. It is the ritual of releasing not only the person but the version of yourself who loved them. To grieve deeply is to honor what mattered, and yet even in grief, you are being shaped. The soul does not waste sorrow. Every tear is a soft chisel, carving you into someone more real, more rooted, more luminous. Eventually, you will stop searching for signs that they were meant to stay. You will start reading the signs that you were meant to grow. That's when your life begins to fill with different kinds of synchronicities, not ones that mirror loss or confusion, but ones that open new paths, new people, and most of all, new versions of yourself. You will see how the relationship in ending gave you what it never could in staying: freedom, depth, and the call to become whole in your own name. Letting go, in this light, is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of the chapter where you become the main character again. And you are not starting over. You are continuing, now aware of what no longer serves you. You will love again, yes. But it will be different. You will no longer chase someone who reflects your emptiness. You will attract someone who respects your fullness, because you will no longer settle for love that costs you your center. That is the quiet power of individuation. Becoming so complete within that love becomes a sharing, not a salvation. And if by chance your paths cross again, whether in thought, memory, or life, you will not feel regret. You will feel reverence, because even pain that wakes the soul is a gift. Some people come to teach you how to hold on, others how to let go, but the rarest are those who teach you how to return to yourself and leave you changed forever. That is not loss. That is sacred transformation. So, as you stand now in the soft aftermath, with your heart stitched with lessons and your spirit clearer than ever, remember this: the universe never removes what belongs to your becoming. And when it calls you to choose yourself, it is never to diminish love, but to make space for a love that matches your truth. Wholeness is the destination, and now, finally, your soul is on its way home. Urge, challenge for the soul. If this message resonated with your journey, reflect on this question today. Where have I been mistaking attachment for love?